We are currently selling Membley Heights. The apartment has ample parking, high-speed lift, 24/7 security, and spacious units with high-quality finishes. With just 1.89 million, you can secure this investment, which offers a return on investment upwards of 10% annually. Usiachwe nyuma. Take action now and start your journey towards wealth creation. Talk to us today on 0798 999 000 or 0115 169451. Have you been impacted by the ministry of Apostle David and Pastor Sonte Juma and Life Church International? This is your opportunity to stand with them as they raise funds to purchase land for the establishment of an apostolic center on Sunday, 25th August 2024, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The function will take place together with the assembly meeting at Eastern Bypass Infinity. To support this cause, kindly channel your contribution to M-Pesa paybill number 22211. Account number 065 000 010 845, or write a check to Life Church International Projects, Family Bank KTDA branch, account number 065 000 010 845. For more information and directions to the site, kindly check our social media platforms. God bless you as you purpose to be part of this noble assignment.
Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Gigi Report. I'm your host, Godfrey Gichuki, and this is your exciting show, very informative. Like I always tell you, the Gigi Report is a platform for big, bold, and honest conversations. And today we're going to have a very honest conversation. I have with me some two wonderful guests right here at the studio. We are live on our social media platform, Elevate TV Kenya, Facebook, and YouTube channel. So please remember to share, invite your friends. Let's have a conversation. And I'm looking forward to our discussion today. And as always, as you know, we dive into all dimensions. We're going to be focusing on the Constitution of Kenya at 14. The state of the nation, that's the main area we're going to be touching on, and we're going to dive into that. This is a legal and social discussion. We're going to touch a bit of politics, of course, and some of the controversies around the Kenyan Constitution, its application 14 years down the line, some of the achievements, some of the faults and failures. So I have a very wonderful panel here, and I'm going to be asking and introducing them. Let me actually just give you a quick overview. I have with me on my far left Mr. Badant Muchere. Welcome to the show, sir. Look at that camera and welcome the audience. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself later.
Thank you.
Just go ahead and welcome the audience.
I'm happy to be here and to share whatever I may have in this wonderful channel, which has been there and giving people the proper, the real, what the nation is all about.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Welcome, Mr. Muchere. I'm going to be telling people a little bit more about you. Plus, of course, you can also tell us a little bit more as we go on. With me, right on my immediate left, is Alvin Kosgei. Alvin, welcome our viewers. That's right at that camera. Just look at that and welcome our viewers and tell them to join us for this conversation.
Thank you, viewers. For those who've already tuned in, you've made the right decision. We are here to converse about matters that are important and affect us. So keep it locked. We are going to have, as our host has said, a bold and a credible conversation about important affairs. Karibu.
Asante. Asante, thank you very much indeed. So now my guest, Bernard Muchere, he is a certified fraud examiner, and he's been in this field for a long time. He's also an anti-fraud expert in many ways, and he's worked with Treasury for many years. Mr. Muchere actually started his career and ended his career in the National Treasury. So if there is someone who knows the National Treasury, that man is right here in these studios. I know he doesn't have enough time to talk about his 40 years experience, but we'll try and glean as much as we can. I'll try and ask him as many questions for you, because some of you actually look at the Treasury as the national, maybe treachery or something like that. I don't know what you think about the Treasury. Now, Alvin Kosgei is a founder and partner of KMK Africa Advocate, and he specializes in litigation and commercial law, and he's been practicing for over 7 years, and he is currently the secretary to the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum. So he is here actually representing the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum community, and of course would have loved to host some of the other guys within the forum, but he's available here. So he's also going to be telling us what the Christian Professional Forum have been, thinking about, looking at how the Constitution of Kenya has been implemented the last 14 years. So please bear with my a little bit rusty voice. I am, trying to shake off some kind of a rusty voice, flu, but I'm good. I believe you're hearing me loud and clear. So let's get the conversation underway. All right, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Mr. Bernard. I have just told our viewers that you worked in the Treasury for over 40 years, most of your career, if not all your career. So just give us a little bit a highlight of that background, what your experience has been like, and of course, since now you have retired, obviously you joined the wonderful club of senior members of this country, and you can also tell us what it means, and it feels like to be on the other side. You don't have to report to anyone.
That's right.
Welcome.
Yes, I'm free now.
Yeah.
Like the time I was working under somebody. I retired some few years ago. Maybe you may see as if it's not. Some people tell me I faked the retirement.
Okay.
That is not true.
Yeah.
I reached my 60 years.
Yeah.
I worked in the public service the
Okay.
whole of my life,
Okay.
specifically in the National Treasury. National Treasury deals with the fiscal policy,
Okay.
things to do with the taxation and this, managing the budget, managing the consolidated fund, all those, essentially to say, funding the government.
Okay.
Yes. Within the course of my working in the Treasury, I was an internal auditor.
Okay.
Then, in the process, I became a certified fraud examiner, which is the anti-fraud expert.
Okay.
And also, I was the president of Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, Kenya chapter.
Okay.
Yes, and what have been involved in all along is the financial management, the public financial management.
Right.
The public financial management is a little bit different. Finances in the public are managed a little bit different
Yes.
from the commercial.
Right.
What has been happening these days is that they have mixed up commercial and the government.
Right.
In my days, when I was doing accounts, there was a difference. There was a commercial, there was the government accounts.
All right.
And that's where you see these days, this a little bit of a challenge by
Right.
those people who are managing the public finances, because public finances is all to do with the law.
Okay.
Is because one, these are public money.
Yes.
You cannot allow any one single person to decide on how the money is being managed.
Okay. Okay. We'll return to that.
Yeah.
That's a very good overview. Absolutely amazing. I'm sure we're looking forward to hearing more of your background story. And wonderful. This man is loaded. Alvin, introduce yourself. You are the young man in this sitting. But yes, you carry a lot of wealth of experience. Being a lawyer, I have very high respect for lawyers. Every time I host a legal expert, I enjoy the ride. Yeah, so introduce yourself a little bit more. Tell us, what are you doing? Some of the experiences you've had so far, and what makes you wake up every Monday morning. Yeah.
Thank you. Like you've said, I'm the youngest in this city. I'm privileged to sit between men. It's a privilege. I can't take it for granted.
Right.
I am, first of all, before we even talk about being an advocate,
Yes.
I am a young Kenyan who is having a lived experience in these interesting times.
Right.
Now specifically that we are talking about the constitution and the governance affairs of our country.
Right.
I am among them that are enjoying the benefits, seeing the challenges that our country is going through, including but not limited to the issues of public finance that my co-guest is talking about. Over and above that, I am an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with a few years of experience. It's good you say when you host lawyers, you have high regard for them. I don't know if all of us have given the public reason to have high regard for us, but we hope that we hold out as noble as we should be.
Right.
I joined this profession after the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010. So I've had also the occasion to come in at a time when there was a new foundation that had been laid, a new governance foundation that was more aspirational, more forward-looking, and that's why you will hear people saying that the Constitution is a bit progressive. So I have a lot to say about where we are at now, and having read in books about the history of this country, I think there are a few things that even us who are now coming on to the field can speak about to ensure that there is betterment of our social fabric.
That's true. That's true. Very profound. And Alvin, you get it right, because you're blessed that you've come into the legal profession, at a time when we have a completely fresh, ground laid. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 is counted to be the most progressive, the most, transformative in many ways. And because Mr. Muchere has worked through almost like all the dispensations, right from when Treasury used to operate through ministerial, what are they called, letters. There was some letters that ministers would write. They were called what?
Memos.
Yeah, the ministry memos were a memo by the PS Treasury or the minister would be really the piece of paper that gave power to whoever was acting the what you'd call the accounting officers, they would actually, stand on that power if it is. So we'll be coming back to that. But let's talk about the constitution now being at 14 years. 14 years down the line, we have had this amazing constitution. Mr. Muchere, I think you're the best person to tell us, in your view, what do you think are the successes and maybe the shortcomings of what you see as the Constitution of Kenya, what we bequeathed ourselves as a new constitution?
Thank you. I was there during the old constitution.
Yes.
We had a constitution. And that constitution was also not bad.
Okay.
It was okay.
Yes.
But what happened is that in the process, there was a lot of amendments in that constitution.
Okay.
And that is the one which watered down, because the main issue of a constitution is to use the document as a guide to the management of the country's resources,
Okay.
of the Kenyan citizen resources.
Right.
But by and by, there was a lot of amendments, and that is what brought in the new constitution.
Right.
So when we were writing this new constitution, we were aware of why that other constitution was mutilated, if I can say so.
Yeah.
To an extent now, it gave a few people a lot of powers.
Okay.
Especially the president.
Okay.
And other people, like the people who are now representing the president in the provinces and the districts, they were too powerful due to those amendments.
Okay.
Then, when we were writing this other constitution, we tried as much as possible to reduce those the powers that were acquired through the amendment of those constitution.
Okay.
Now, we also made this constitution very, very difficult to amend.
Okay.
And it has been working very well.
Okay.
However, there are a few issues where now, because of the difficulty in amending the constitution, there are issues where you find now they are amending the constitution through amending the statute.
Okay.
That's where the biggest problem lies.
All right.
But now it has got very good, even the devolution is a very good thing in that constitution.
Okay.
In itself, it has reduced a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of powers being held by one person,
Okay.
because there are several institutions
Yes.
which actually are supposed to control the excesses which can be seen.
Okay.
However, the problem is some of the people who have been given the responsibility, in one way or the other, they have given in to the powers, and that's where most of the problems have arisen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I hear you out, and I'm going to be asking Alvin to respond to that. But that last bit where you say that there is a sense in which some of the independent institutions, of course, there are three main arms that are created by the Constitution. I'm speaking as a layman, but an observer layman. The Constitution divides up the power into Parliament, then executive,
Yes.
and the judiciary. Of course, the people are sovereign, okay?
Yeah.
And we'll be returning to that statement of the sovereignty of the people,
Yes.
and how they exercise their power through delegated to those specific institutions. So what you're saying is that there is a sense in which, in practice,
Yes.
kind of, we don't seem to drop off the old mentality that the big guy,
Yes.
who is the boss, the executive,
Yes.
carries the day, and other institutions seems to be deferring to the president for that matter. However, I know it's something we could debate quite a bit, but let's hear Wakili. Again, give your comment. The question is, 14 years down the line, later, what do you see, your own commentary on the successes and the failures of this constitution?
Yeah, maybe before I even answer that question, I'll briefly add and say that what you said is true. The Constitution in its infrastructure envisions 3 arms of government, but on top of the 3 that you've just mentioned, there is what is now being called in academic circles the 4th arm of government,
Okay.
and that is the independent commissions, I think under chapter 15 of the Constitution.
Yes.
And you'll notice that these independent commissions
Yes.
are established and understood to be a further check to the power and excesses of power in the executive and executive arm of government, and to some extent even parliament and the judiciary.
Okay.
And from history and what we've heard from my co-host saying, from the amendments and over amendments of the Constitution, we led ourselves to a situation that could be called having a constitution without constitutionalism.
Okay.
You have a constitution, but the aspirations, the dreams, the principles, and the ideas that the people of Kenya would want the Constitution to do for them, or what courts would call the spirit of the Constitution, was not there.
Okay.
Now you realize, to use examples, that there are certain powers that you wouldn't want the executive to have. For instance, you wouldn't want the executive, which has a 5-year term, to serve the people and go back to the people for a fresh mandate to be the one that is completely in charge of electoral affairs.
Okay.
And that's why we have an independent commission like the IEBC. On top of that, when you look at the Bill of Rights, there is a right under Article 47, which is called the right to fair administrative action, which again goes to assist the public to try and demand and ensure that the government delivers services in a fair manner.
Right.
On top of that, then you'd ask yourself, who polices and ensures that the government does makes decisions, delivers services in a manner that is fair, timely, and gives reasons through issues of accountability. So we have a commission called the Commission on Administrative Justice that does that. Okay. So looked at it in totality, you'll realize that in as much as we have 3 arms of government, that is the judiciary, the executive, and the lawmaking arm, which is the legislature, we have independent commissions, which looked at keenly would look as though they are 4th arm of government. And that would be where I would start as one of the hits of the Constitution. The framers of the Constitution tried very much to ensure that the problems that were bedeviling the country in the previous dispensation found some form of remedy.
Okay.
They attempted to put inbuilt remedies in the Constitution to check excesses of power. And as you may have heard, they say that power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yes.
So when you have a check like the independent commissions that you have there, that is a win in the Constitution. When I go back to Article 1 and 2 of the Constitution, they talk about the supremacy of the Constitution and the power being primarily reposed in the people. The power that the arms of government use to execute their mandate is donated from the people.
Okay.
In the previous constitution, you wouldn't find an express provision giving mandate to the people as the proper owners of our country, so to speak. So that's another hit, and I think in recent times, you've had even members of the political class when there is a bit of disagreement, going back and saying that we want to ask the people to exercise their power directly through Article 1. So whether it's used rightly or wrongly is a question for another day. But that the Constitution expressly says that the power belongs to the people, I think is a way of bringing hygiene and reminding the leaders that we have that at the end of the day, this power is delegated. It's a form of public trust.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I will just hold you because Mr. Muchere, I can see he's listening keenly. Actually, and Mr. Muchere, you can tell us, recently you made an appeal to the parliament and sent in it's called a citizen, I can't remember, citizen appeal to the Speaker of the National Assembly. And actually the Speaker of the National Assembly read out your petition in Parliament, and it was brought on the floor of Parliament for consideration, which in itself is something that wouldn't have happened in the previous dispensation. Maybe tell us about that and what the issue was about, and the fact that you exercised your citizen power.
Actually, I've sent almost 5 petitions
Okay.
to Parliament.
Okay.
Okay. Up to now, none of them have been actually debated. It's one which was read in Parliament on a National Health Insurance Fund,
Okay.
where I did an audit.
Yes.
We call it a fraud risk examination, fraud risk management, fraud examination.
Yes.
What I did is to get the financial statement for the National Health NHIF.
Yes. It was in respect to the NHIF. Yes.
Now, when I audited the financial statements, I found that almost 21 billion shillings could have been siphoned out by the end of the year 2022.
Okay.
It went to Parliament. It was tabled by the Speaker. It was committed to the Petitions Committee of Parliament.
Okay.
Up to now, I've not heard anything about it.
Okay.
Although they were supposed to have done it, to have debated and give me a report on it, and even invite me to attend the session so that I can present my petition. They are supposed to do it within 90 days.
Okay.
It is now almost 6 months.
Okay.
Yes. So
If it was 2022, actually, it's more than 1 year, 6 months.
no, I wrote the report in October.
Okay.
Yes, because the audit report was out by June
Okay.
2023. So I got the audit report. I went through and found that the Kenyans could have lost about 21 billion shillings. So what I don't know why is the Parliament not really debating it, because that is a very serious issue.
Wonderful. That's what we are talking about. The citizens have power, and I think let me tell you why that is important. And because, sorry, I have a hard guest here, and we've talked about citizens taking responsibility. The whole idea of sensitization, and civic education, where people actually can clearly understand that if you are dissatisfied with some ongoings in Parliament, you have a right as a citizen of the Republic of Kenya to actually petition Parliament directly. So that's a major one. So viewers, I want you to note that actually you can petition our national Parliament. That is your right and it's your privilege. And Mr. Alvin Muchere here has done that exactly, and his petition was read out in Parliament. So it's not just your member of Parliament who is representing you. You can represent yourself and make your member of Parliament look like he's not working, which is a nice thing. All right. So thank you very much indeed, Mr. Muchere. I know would love to go into the details of it, but clearly you've been able to demonstrate that that is actually doable.
Yeah, to add to that, Article 118 allows anybody to petition anything, including amendment of an act of Parliament.
Okay.
Yes, and obviously you have the powers under Article 1.
Yeah.
Because you can exercise directly or indirectly. So based on Article 1, and when you look at Article 118,
yes,
then you are allowed to petition Parliament.
Wonderful,
yes.
Wonderful. Maybe we should ask Alvin what you guys are doing in the legal profession. Does LSK do direct petitions or maybe professional petitions or something like that? Very, very briefly before we go to a break.
Yes. Like he's saying, Article 118 gives mandate to any person to petition Parliament, and there is the Parliament Petitions Procedures Act, which also now makes it more elaborate or provides a more elaborate mechanism on how you do that, how the format should look like. What is interesting to note about that act is there is a good manner in which it was drafted. It doesn't have the need for any person who wants to petition to present a particular format, the way you would petition the court, and you'd have to present it in a particular way. So LSK, to answer your question, yes, does. If you've noticed, when there is any issue of public interest, whether or not it's recently when there were proposals to do acquisitions, I think of the KAA by Kenya Airways, there was a petition process that allowed for different stakeholders, including LSK. And I remember LSK did a petition. Actually, one of my partners at the office also did a petition, and it went to Parliament, and they were heard. Other than that, as lawyers, of course, we are custodians of justice. We assist the citizens and also the courts by presenting now petitions to the court. And you will notice that as a hit again, I would say, the Constitution has removed what was previously an issue around whether you have standing to approach the court. Now, if there is any issue of public importance, you feel like the leaders are not doing what they need to do, you don't have to be directly affected by that decision. It says any person can approach the court when you read Article 3, 4, and 22 of the Constitution. So we have, as LSK, another avenue, that is the courts. And I would say, by and large, they've tried to assist Kenyans, because sometimes you may not find assistance in Parliament, you may not find assistance about an issue in the executive, and sometimes the courts have stood their ground and said our role is to say what the law is, and in our understanding whether any person involved is happy about it or not, this is the position. Okay. But to some extent also there are issues that have arisen. There are issues of course, corruption in our courts. There are also issues of whether some of the decisions they make in, and I think we'll get there later.
Yeah, we want to take
are acceptable. Yes, so that's what I'd say.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, we want to take a short break. When we come back to this conversation, we'll return to some of the issues, some of the gross failures, and some of the challenges we have seen given the Constitution, the freedom that Kenyans have actually discovered that they have. Perhaps that also has created some challenges here and there. So we'll be returning to the conversation. Let's take a short break. We're coming back here. Don't go away. Please keep commenting. We'll be reading your comments as we go along. So keep it elevate. Let's take a break.
Have you been impacted by the ministry of Apostle David and Pastor Sonte Juma and Life Church International? This is your opportunity to stand with them as they raise funds to purchase land for the establishment of an apostolic center on Sunday, 25th August 2024, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The function will take place together with the assembly meeting at Eastern Bypass Infinity. To support this cause, kindly channel your contribution to M-Pesa paybill number 222-111, account number 065 000 010 845, or write a check to Life Church International Projects, Family Bank KTDA branch, account number 065 000 010 845. For more information and directions to the site, kindly check our social media platforms. God bless you as you purpose to be part of this noble assignment. Life Church International invites you to Assembly 2024. This is not just a gathering, it's a divine encounter. Join Apostle David and Pastor Sonte Juma for a joint service that unites all LCI churches and affiliate ministries. Mark your calendar for 25th August at Eastern Bypass Infinity from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Experience powerful worship, inspiring messages, and a community united in faith. Don't miss this extraordinary event. See you there.
Welcome back. This is the Gigi Report. We are talking about the Constitution at 14, the state of the nation. How far have we come? How has the new Constitution performed? I think we need to stop calling it the new Constitution. It's 14 years old. It's at the teenage age. So I think it's quite amazing. And so we've just been discussing about some of the real gains and the transformation that the new constitution has brought to the conversation, and in particular the freedoms and the allowances the new constitution provides, that you can actually petition parliament directly as an individual. You can also go to court, and the issue of loci standing, that whether you as a private individual, you are standing before the court of law, that is no longer an issue. You can actually go to court directly and petition and prosecute a matter in the public domain on any issue without fear or without fear actually. So we want to return to that conversation, but I want us to address, you mentioned the issue of corruption just before we went to the break. I want us to address this chapter 6. Chapter 6 is the most popular chapter. When we are unhappy with our leaders, we keep talking about chapter 6. So, Mr. Muchere, as you know very well, you have retired, and we have had conversation between me and you off the set, and clearly you have a big story, especially in your view of how our leaders have performed in fulfilling the conversation. So I wanted to start and comment. Do you think that our leaders, in respect to chapter 6, which requires, that the members, the officers have to be above board, they have to be members of, with good standing, citizens of Kenya, integrity, no conflict of interest and stuff like that. Please comment on what you think we have achieved in that area.
One thing I would say is that the acts which have arisen from chapter 6 are very clear on issues of corruption.
Okay.
Issues of conflict of interest.
Right.
Every act, may it be the public procurement and asset disposal, may it be public finance management act, they usually bring that issue of the conflict of interest. But what has happened over the years? One thing we have, I would like to say here, is that the government has the best system, and the laws we have are adequate. But now one wonders, why do we have a lot of reports on corruption? What happens is overriding of those controls which are envisaged in the provisions of the law.
Okay.
Because when you look at the public financial management, they are set in a way to safeguard public money. Every provision has a control measure, and it has a control objective. However, the problem is overriding those controls.
Okay.
That's why we have, and that is the reason why you find corruption is rampant. It is not rampant because we don't have laws. We do not need any law, addition of any law. We need enforcement of those laws.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I love that. And I really want us to ride on that, the enforcement bit. Alvin, do you think that indeed Kenyans are letting themselves down by not enforcing a law that is openly and clearly and absolutely clear? The law is clear. That's the the conversation I hear all the time. Yeah. So, what do you take what Mr. Bernard Muchere is talking about?
Absolutely. That Kenyans are letting themselves down, the answer to that can not be anything else other than an unequivocal yes. The Chapter 6 of the Constitution provides for principles, general principles that should guide our ethos, our national ethos,
Yes.
in public spaces. And other than Chapter 6 and the pieces of legislation that he makes reference to that are enacted as a command by Article 80. Article 80 of the Constitution says that Parliament shall enact laws to implement the provisions of Chapter 6. There are other laws. There is the Anti-Bribery Act. There is the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. There is a law on money laundering. So we don't have scarcity of laws. We have a scarcity of people who are willing to put their lives and professions on the line to ensure that these laws are implemented, because there are many people who are benefiting from failure to implement.
Okay.
So if there are people who are benefiting from failure to implement the law, it means equally there should be an equality of arms with people who are willing to put their foot down and say, wherever I am, I'll try and ensure that the principles, the pieces of laws, and even the penal code makes provision for criminal sanctions for some of these things that we are talking about, other than the sectorial laws like the Public Finance and Management Act that he's talking about. So we are letting ourselves down because of that, we end up having a situation where people are benefiting from a broken system. And on top of that, we have financial losses as a country. We have many people who are suffering across the country as a result of a system that is broken down. So we are really letting ourselves down. And our leaders are not helping it. Somebody said that, of course, fish rots from the head, yeah? I know that is African wisdom. We know that. So there should be will from the leadership all the way down, because if you talk to ordinary Kenyans, they don't love corruption. It's just that it's been made the order of business, especially in public office, but even today in private organizations that are engaging in business, even with government or among themselves. And there is no clear sanction or consequence that has arisen from the practical implementation of the provisions of the law.
Wonderful. That's a very, very very sound analysis of the fact that Kenyans are letting themselves down by not actually sanctioning and implementing the law. Of course, I really feel tempted to bring in Mr. Muchere here because I want us to dig a little bit. As an example, I mean, Mr. Muchere has been very active in this area, and he has had his some of the issues he's brought up. Without going to details, Mr. Bernard, you have raised matters on, and you've written and providing data in the background, which some Kenyans might actually not be aware about the issue of odious debt. I know we do not have enough time to prosecute that particular item, but I think given your background information, I think you can tell us, do you think that really that issue of odious debt has come off what we are talking about, people not disrespecting the fidelity of our law, which clearly provides how debts should be acquired in the republic?
Absolutely. Because, first of all, one has to ask, why do we incur debt?
Okay.
Yeah, that is the first question. Now, if you look at our Constitution, especially Article 220, and you read it carefully, it states that the budget shall contain, for both the government, the national government and county government, shall contain estimates of revenue and expenditure.
Okay.
Revenue to finance the expenditure.
Okay.
That is Article 220, Sub-Article 1A.
Okay.
You go to 220, Sub-Article 1B, it says the budget shall of the national and county government shall contain proposals for financing anticipated deficit. That is the constitution.
Yes.
The framework.
Yeah.
Which means if you look at those two provisions, the first one is defining what a budget is.
Yes.
The budget contains two sides. One is the revenue and the other one is the expenditure.
The good old, revenue plus minus expenditure
Yes,
is equal
yes.
to...
The expenditure is subdivided into development and the recurrent.
Okay.
So 1B is where now the loans comes in,
Okay.
because that's where the economists say deficit financing.
Yes.
And the deficit financing comes from loans and what have you.
Yeah.
So the definition of the budget does not include the loans, but it comes down here and says if there is an anticipated deficit there, you fill it by giving the proposals.
Yes.
So the debts are in the budget.
Okay.
The debt must be in the budget because that is where you propose that I'll finance the deficit with this amount.
Yes.
And if you look at the development expenditure,
Yes.
2024-2025,
Yes.
if you go there and look at the need, it clearly gives the loans you are going to collect, to borrow,
Yes.
and the specific lender who is going to give those loans.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
For 2024-2025, the total borrowings will be 277
Billion.
billion.
Okay.
Now, when we are making our budget, you'll find that even the budget which is being led by the Cabinet Secretary, which was read on the 13th,
Okay.
it did not have one side of the budget, the estimates.
Okay.
And if you go through very clearly, Article 221, Sub-Article 1, the Cabinet Secretary is supposed to table both estimates of revenue and expenditure on 30th April. If you go to Article 221, Sub-Article 3, it states that the Cabinet, the National Treasury and the National Assembly will consider those two estimates. If you go to Sub-Article 221, Sub-Article 5, there should be public participation on those two, on the budget, which is estimate of revenue and expenditure.
Okay. Okay.
But when you see now that since the estimates of revenue were not tabled,
Okay.
so all what we are given is estimate of expenditure.
Yes.
There's no public participation on estimate of revenue. Now, what happens is this. You let alone, like now, if you go to the Gazette, the Cabinet Secretary Treasury has already gazetted estimates of revenue, which contains 979 billion domestic borrowings.
Okay.
And 500 and something billion external borrowings.
Okay.
So it comes to 1.4 trillion,
Right.
which has been gazetted on 16th.
Of-
Where did the Cabinet Secretary Treasury get those estimates of borrowings?
Okay, good. Our viewers, this man Bernard, I'm cutting him because I think I will have to bring him over here another day so that he can give us those wonderful maths. Clearly, there is. I'm so sorry. There's so much that the public needs to understand, and especially because of the demand for public participation. So in other words, maybe a quick question. Is that the kind of matter, can you actually take that kind of matter to court today and go and petition the court and say that there is actually a breach of the constitution in this particular matter, given the evidence that is he is presenting?
Absolutely, absolutely. Recently, the Court of Appeal made a decision about the Finance Act in the case that had been filed by Okia Omtata. It was determined by the High Court, then it went to the Court of Appeal. And anyone who reads that decision will not or realize that the court decision really turned on the question of public participation. Parliament said it considered or accepted or received views from the public, but it didn't have an explanation as to how those views were handled, whether they were considered, if not considered, why weren't they considered. And the court was saying public participation, and based on even previous decisions that the courts had made, is not just a cosmetic provision in the constitution. It must be the case that all public entities which are involved in any kind of decision making ensure that the people who are affected by the decisions they make, including but not limited to the budget lines where the expenditure is going to be consumed, the people need to know. And other than knowing, they need to participate and give their input. And other than giving their input, it's also a responsibility of any responsible government to ensure that they explain why, how the views were incorporated, and if they were not, why weren't they? And that goes back to Article 1, 2, 3, and even Article 47 and Article 10, particularly on the principles of governance.
I'll consider. Okay.
If I can complete, you see now, you asked about the odious debt, isn't it?
Yes.
I have told you what is in the Appropriation Act is 277 billion.
Yes.
Which is earmarked to a project. And there is the radar already in who is approved. Now, this other 1.45, what else is it? It's odious borrowing.
Okay.
Isn't it? And that's where the odious debt are coming in.
Okay.
You find now we have a 10.2 trillion debt stock.
Okay.
Go out there and tell me whether you can get those projects. And you only borrow for development.
Okay.
So you see, the other thing is this. What is subjected to public participation is not estimates of revenue. It is the Finance Act. Finance Act is not estimate of revenue.
Okay.
Finance Act only is an act, it's an omnibus act
Amendment.
to proposing amendment of tax acts.
Yes.
In itself is not a tax act.
Yes.
It proposes a tax act. So
Amendment,
now,
yeah.
instead of subjecting estimates of revenue to public participation, what is subjected to the public participation is the Finance Act, which contains only rates to raise the estimates of revenue.
Absolutely, and I think we need to tell our viewers, what Kenyans rejected, following the protests that we witnessed, were actually, they were protesting the 2024 finance bill, which is actually that omnibus bill that amends various sections of various across range of statutes. And maybe it's good to give an example. For example, if VAT, for example, the VAT on fuel, had to move from 8% to 16%. There was a section, I don't know where it's contained, which particular act it's contained in, but that was amended by, I think, the 2023 Constitution. The Finance Act.
Yes.
Bill, the bill, the 2023 bill, which is right now under contestation, isn't it? Yes. So what happens is that if we wanted to increase VAT from 16% to 16.5, would have to amend the VAT Act,
Yes.
or propose an amendment in the next cycle of annual, what they call finance bills, that kind of thing. So, the reason why I'm emphasizing that, because we can educate our public, and some of the preachers and men of God who watch this television, some of you, you're going to be preaching on Sunday. And so we are providing you with some of the background information. And my guest here, Bernard Muchere, he has a wealth of experience. My guest, Alvin Kosgei, he's a lawyer, and I'm sure you picked up the conversation and some of the issues. So we'll be reading your comments. Please keep them coming. And I believe that you're following this conversation as we talk about the Constitution at 14 and the gains and the losses or the hits and misses. All right. So, Mr. Muchere, you've laid it out. I know that whole conversation needs much deeper conversation because there is still more to then ask, how is it that Kenyans, the taxpayer, is being burdened by taxes which are questionably from a constitutional point of view, they were acquired judicially or extra constitutionally or something like that. So, Alvin, do you want to add something like that before we come to this other issue of the whole? I want us to return to the whole issue of the Constitution is progressive. So why is it letting us down? But maybe you can comment on what Mr. Muchere has. I'm sure you've listened to that audience discussion.
I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. Recently, if we check the news, there is a country in Africa that went to the courts of the UK and complained about the debt that had been borrowed by their country, and it was found by the court that the manner in which the debt was taken was outside the procedures and the laws that were provided for in the Constitution and the legislations. And that declaration simply speaks to, we need to understand when we say odious debt, what do we mean? It's bad debt. And in this case, bad debt. Why? In our case, because the relevant laws and procedures that should come before the debt is taken have not been followed. For instance, parliamentary approval has not been given. The procedure for the financial or fiscal year before the financial laws come into place have not been followed, and it's talked about the necessary public participation prior to the publication and debate of those bills not being done. And without saying much, you can ask yourself a question about how you can be debating the mechanisms of raising the funds without discussing and getting input from the people about what projects need to be funded. And before you even go into how you're raising locally, these projects that need to be funded, as we speak for ourselves, how does government plan to raise that money from the local economy? And at the end of the day, it's the responsibility of the government to ensure that the economy thrives, and out of that thriving of the economy, you can raise revenue. So it's more or less like a chicken and egg situation. And remember, much more noise is being made because, as he says, maybe some of these projects are not known, but there is another more even fundamental question that you may ask. If the people didn't participate in the process and give their views before Parliament enacts a law, how are they going to be able to accept the final result of being told that we are going to raise revenue by requiring you to give up your resources here and there? So that's the addition that I would make. Coming back to the Constitution, I think we had finished the issue of Chapter 6. And in addition to the hits that we had discussed earlier, maybe I can add one more. And
we are running out of time.
Okay.
I think that your point is made because we know for sure, like Mr. Muchere has clearly indicated, we have actually sufficient law. So it's the whole issue of how do we get our leaders to obey the law, to honor the law, and actually, be faithful to the law. So, Mr. Muchere, for example, you know very well, the president swears to faithfully follow the law and actually be the custodian and the implementer of the law. So maybe, and we have short time just to wrap this up. So how satisfied are you that the current government is really staying to that mandate which we gave the government? I don't know, just to talk about the president himself, but it's the whole executive arm of government. What's your take?
They have absolutely not followed the law.
Okay.
They have absolutely not followed the law, because you see, every action of the government is provided for in the law. You can see they go establishing projects. You see, we talk about the budget having a deficit from the beginning, isn't it? So it means the budget which is there has to be filled by loans, isn't it? So now if you go add another project, what are you telling us? Because you don't have money, you don't have tax revenue, So if you go and tell people, I'm going to build this here, or this 200 million, 10 million, something like that, you are telling them, I'm going to borrow. To do what?
To do that particular.
And one thing about the borrowing is that it is a tax in advance, because finally we have to pay. So this is tax in advance. So whoever is coming up with those projects which are not in the budget,
yes,
means he's actually taxing you in advance.
Right.
So the finance bill which you complained about, it is being brought in through the back door.
Right.
Because now, I'm going to borrow to do what? Right now, I've told you, according to the statement of actual revenue and the exchequer issue, the cabinet secretary, the new cabinet secretary, not the old one, last Friday,
right,
gazetted borrowings of 1.5 trillion.
Okay.
And the total aggregate development expenditure is only 746 billion. So 1.5 you are estimated to borrow. You have only 760 billion, and part of that is tax revenue to finance the expenditure.
Okay.
So we may find a whole 1 trillion you are borrowing for nothing. So apart from the procedures, you can see now they are borrowing not for the development. And
Okay.
if you go beyond that, you will find that there is what we call the Ponzi scheme.
Okay. Mr. Muchere, you're very clear. You're concerned. You are a fraud expert, and I'm sure you have more for us and for Kenyans. But I'm sure you have a positive message. And so as we wrap up, we have just about 2 minutes. So I'm going to give you each of you 1 minute each. Maybe there is still some hope for this republic. And perhaps we can start with the young man and then we finish with Mr. Muchere. In general, your final take on this discussion.
I think the young people like me have more at stake in how the country is run, because we have more years at the end of our lives. Before I give my final remarks, let me just say briefly 2 things. I feel like I've not seen serious commitment to implement the law as it is from the fact that runaway corruption is still there, and we've spoken about it many times, and even going down to the nature of appointments that have been made recently. Elsewhere, if there is a suggestion that there is a problem with your previous track record, it would be very difficult for you to find yourself in public office. And the suggestion would be you should be beyond reproach. You should be beyond reproach like Caesar's wife. But there is hope. There are mechanisms in place. If the government would listen to the people and commit to implement the law as it is, there is a lot to start from. We don't start from a position where the legal policy, institutional and regulatory framework puts you at a disadvantage. It puts you at a position of advantage. So just implement it. The Constitution gives clear principles. If you want to bring hygiene in the public space, the Constitution gives the mechanisms for you to be able to do that. And the standard and the bar is not very high. I believe it's low. So not just from, of course, the head of state, even down to anybody who has any form of responsibility. There is a material there. Just use it.
Okay. All right. I'll take that as your final comment on this debate and this conversation. So, Mr. Muchere, I'm sure, even though you're retired and out here in the public observing, from outside the system, you still have hope for this republic. So look at that camera and in 2-3 seconds, assure Kenyans and also tell them the necessary action they can take.
What I can say is that our country is good, very, very good. We don't have extreme people, even the leaders. If you confront them, they change their direction. What we have started is that we have started now educating people, especially before I started analyzing the document, because I analyzed the document which has been published. I see so many people now have taken over even analyzing the same document. They have always been there. Mm-hmm. And the good thing is that they publish these documents. So what has happened is that because we have not taken initiative to interrogate and put it to our name, because you can see I sent a report. Parliament, as much as they did not want to, they are actually debating it.
Okay.
And you can see some changes. There are most of my petitions have not been tabled in Parliament, but I know they are there. But I can see there are some changes in other documents, but I can see came from so there's hope that this country can go back to.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to bring this conversation to an end. And indeed, you've heard from my guests, Panan Muchere and Alvin Kosgei, and clearly Kenyans need to take matters in their own hands. If you have a petition, if you want something to say, the Constitution of this republic allows you to put out your voice. So that's all we had for you today, and I believe you've learned a lot. And let's keep our heads up. Let's not give up on our responsibility on our nation. Let's take personal responsibility, and we'll see Kenya change to what we want it to be. So God bless you so much, and we'll see you another day. This is the GG Report. I look forward to meeting you again, same time, same channel. Keep it elevated, and God bless you. See you next Friday. Bye for now.